Hi, my name is Stephen McGee and I'm the author of Toxic Health. I'm here today to look into one of the subjects of toxic health, and that is how electromagnetic fields can affect your health. And what we're looking at is the literature that is available on this subject. There's a lot of literature available on this subject, so this is just a sample. But I'm going to go through them and show you what is considered to be the leading literature. And the person who started off this subject was Dr. John Nash. He wrote this book back in the 1950s, which is My Ivory Cellar. And it says it's the story of time-lapse photography, but it's actually a book about electromagnetic radiation, and in particular, how plants and animals react to electromagnetic radiation. And Dr. John Nash found that when animals and plants were exposed to electromagnetic radiation, they got very sick, and to the point that they would die prematurely and would develop cancer. So he pretty much figured that out back in the 1950s, and all of this stuff was actually John Ott's work over the years. He died about a decade ago, and he has left this legacy of literature that documents what he was working on, and it's all very interesting. So the next book that he did was called Health and Light, which is this one, and it talks extensively about the experiments he ran on plants and animals, and his work had progressed somewhat in this book and is far more detailed. It's a very interesting read. And the final book that he did was this one. It's called Light, Radiation and You. And by the time he wrote this book, he had very, very extensively documented the subject of electromagnetic radiation and the health problems. And it's all very repeatable. I've actually repeated many of his experiments. I was actually independently researching, and then I came across John Ott's work. And the work that he details actually verified my independent research that I had done before I was aware of the contents of these books. So the stuff that he talks about in the books is proven, and it's been proven by multiple people. And it's quite a serious thing that right now electromagnetic interference in human health is somewhat in denial. But if you go to a country like Sweden, they've actually acknowledged its existence. And about 300,000 people have actually registered to say that they have sickness that comes from electromagnetic interference. So that's quite interesting that so many people are being made sick in Sweden from electromagnetic interference. And the government in Sweden acknowledges the problem and acknowledges that electrical and electronic equipment does actually make humans get very, very sick when in the wrong environment. So the next articles that John Ott did was a series of articles in this magazine. It's called the International Journal of Biosocial Research. And it's basically a summary of the contents of his books over a series of articles that were published back in the 1980s. And over here we have his DVD. The interesting thing about John Ott is that he actually videoed much of his work as he was very extensively studying time-lapse photography. So if you want to see what he was doing, this video is a very interesting video to watch, because you'll see the animals and plants getting sick in this video. So moving forward a little bit onto the newer research, these are some of the more popular books, and this one is by Levitt. It's called Electromagnetic Fields, and as you can see, it's quite thick. It's a very extensive documentation of the effects of electromagnetic interference on humans. And this one is quite similar. It's called Cross Currents. It's by Dr. Robert O Becca. And it details the real serious problems to human health that electromagnetic pollution is causing. Now, this book here is very interesting because this details a problem that's present at my house, and this is done by Russell. It's called Electrocution of America, and he details the problem of stray voltage. And stray voltage originates at your grounding system, and in America your grounding system is the utility neutral connection, so that carries a current on the utility neutral connection, and when it starts getting overloaded it starts putting voltage and current into your grounding system, and that can make you really sick. And it's very, very well documented in the farming industry, and this book does an excellent job of actually documenting the effect. And he had the same problem as I have, which is that the utility is denying this problem. I get it on my house in the summertime. It gets pretty high on my house in the summertime. And the utility company, I've told the utility company about it, and they tell me that it's not an issue and to ignore it, even though I appear to get health problems from it. So the interesting thing about my utility is they haven't performed a single measurement that would ever show stray voltage, and they've actually shut down the complaint that I made to them. So I have to agree with Russell on that. The utilities are in the process of covering up stray voltage at the expense of the common person's health. So it's a very interesting book on stray voltage. Now, the final book is called Dirty Electricity, and this is done by Samuel Milham. And what he found by looking at census data was that before electricity was introduced, people were much healthier, and as electricity got introduced around the population, certain diseases started to appear in the population, and most notably is leukemia. It appears that leukemia was born with the development of electricity. And there's quite a few other diseases that he talks about in there that he has linked to the presence of electricity being in the home and workplace, and for that reason he's called his book Dirty Electricity, because it appears that electricity is making people ill in very large numbers. And people right now have not yet in mass figured out that the illness, for the most part, is probably coming from the electrical system that's around them and the electrical and electronic devices that they've purchased. So if you're interested in the subject, I recommend that you obtain these books and have a read of them. It's just a sample of the many, many books that are out there on the subject. And these are what I recommend people to start with. And after you've read these, you can work through the other documentation and see what you think. But if you're unhealthy, I would take a very hard, serious look at your electrical and electronic environment, and you may actually find that you're getting sick from the things that you're purchasing and the proximity of electrical cables to your body. So it pays to know where your electrical cables run in both your home and your office. And I should mention that one of the reasons why I got very interested in this subject was back in 2009. I had just been working with some very, very high-powered electronic utility systems, and I found that after working with them, I had what I would call early onset of dementia, and I couldn't remember any numbers. I couldn't remember alarm codes. I couldn't remember telephone numbers. I couldn't remember my social security number, and I actually managed to clear it up, and that is kind of where Toxic Health was born from. The things that I had to do to clear up my early onset dementia that showed up after commissioning a very large solar power plant is documented in Toxic Health, and I have to say it was a very unpleasant experience. And after following the guidance that I developed in Toxic Health, I actually found that my memory came back, and so did my ability to remember numbers and also to do maths. Mathematics was a very, very hard thing for me to do after I left that particular solar power plant. And for that reason, I'm very, very interested in the subject of dirty electricity and stray voltage, and I am now sharing the knowledge that I'm developing on this subject with people who are interested in it. So if you're having very strange symptoms, including very strange mental symptoms that don't seem to be normal, I would recommend that you start looking into your electromagnetic interference environments and understanding them. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I wish you the very best of health. Thank you.